What's up, guys? If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Also, please smash that like button on the video and enjoy the show.
Here's like Robin Hood, right? A guy who stood up for his crew members. It was like, enough's enough. We're tired of being exploited. We're going to seize this vessel, seizes an incredible amount of treasure and disappears. And then rumors go about as to what happened to him. People speculate, and it becomes this pop culture phenomenon in the 1690s and the early 1700s, where all of the elements of entertainment culture of the era are all featuring the Henry Avery story. There are plays about him on Drury Lane. There's, sonnets written about him, histories of the great pirate Henry Avery. And in all of these, they have these wild fantasies about where he is and what he's done with his treasure. But many of them circulate around, he's gone to Madagascar, and there he's built a pirate kingdom, with streets paved of gold, and everything's absolutely wonderful. Like the hobos, what is that? The Candy Mountains, the sort of fantasy land that the hobos sang about in their songs.
Must have missed that one.
Yeah, well, this is like for sailors, this is like the fantasy nirvana place, the kingdom of the pirates, where everything's wonderful and they have incredible amounts of treasure. And he's there and he got away with it. And so this is the story that's percolating around when when a group of young people and young sailors are growing up who are eventually going to lead this pirate insurrection and pirate republic in the Bahama Islands in the 1710s.
That's wild, though, that I didn't expect the story to go to. He decides to go all the way back where he came from and fades into anonymity, because then you see all these other guys who are in the Bahamas, and we're going to talk about them and who comes up and kind of takes control. But, I think a floating question is, obviously, people look at pirates and they think, okay, criminal, outlaw, pretty obvious. But what types of people was Henry Avery recruiting to be on his crew? Was he just going to the local jail when guys actually didn't get hanged and let out and said, all right, join me? Or was he turning people who were law-abiding citizens and paying them enough money that suddenly they become criminals? Like, what, or was it a mix?
In Avery's case, it was just circumstance. Like, I don't think he was planning on going to piracy. He and his crew are being screwed over by the ship owners, and so they decide to mutiny. And so his crew is whoever was willing to join the mutiny. So it's a whole bunch of sailors who happen to be on the same expedition, who are all hired by the same, employers, and the employees are getting screwed over, and they all rise up. So he ends up with who he ends up with, and from there on, because he made this incredible score of like the greatest, pile of treasure you could possibly imagine, it's all reductionist from there, right? He's shedding people as he's trying to, escape the manhunt. And
now, when you say shedding people,
well, he
like
gets
throwing them overboard.
No indication of that. But say when they get to the Bahamas, and they sell the Grand Mogul's ship to the governor. The party breaks up, right? Some of them go in one small boat and, sail up to Philadelphia. And then a few weeks later, another group of them go. The group breaks up and starts scattering to go find their own path with their own shares of the treasure. And so when Avery's last, he's sailing with a half dozen people when he arrives in Ireland, and he quickly breaks company with them. And as I said, when he's last seen, he's with one of the other crewmen's wife and is at a crossroads. So it's down to just two people. She's later seen actually without him by another witness who shows up at a trial and is, acting very sus. But, where is Henry Avery? Oh, I don't know. He's dead. I haven't seen him lately, right? It appears that even he was down to just himself at some point with a whole mess of treasure. So, but the question as to how did the pirates recruit? The Golden Age pirates who had a choice in how to go about recruiting, as opposed to just ending up by happenstance in piracy. Some of them did exactly what Avery did. They mutinied against oppressive conditions on their vessel and seized their vessel. Others, decided, this sucks. We're going to go, enter piracy by stealing some small vessel at anchor, or some of them started with these sort of super ocean-going canoes called periaguas. They were like giant dugout canoes with sails. And you could seat, 7, 8, 10 men on one of these, and you could have several of them. And that was usually the starter pack for a lot of the pirates. Not only were they easy to acquire, but remember, this is the age of sail. The vessels you're pursuing to make your first scores and build your way up as a pirate are constrained when they try to sail into the wind. Right? If you're, a sailing vessel and you sail into the wind's going to be on both sides of the sail. It's just going to flap like a flag and you're going to be going nowhere. A sailing vessel has to go off the wind and point off the wind at some angle to catch the wind and start sailing. And square-rigged vessels, which many of the big ocean-going ships of that era were terrible. They had to sail way off the wind. I mean, 90, 45, 50, 60 degrees off the wind. And so they had to zigzag, tacking back and forth if they were trying to go in the direction of the wind. Incredibly inefficient. If the wind's really blowing, the waves and the wind are hitting the hull and pushing you further off, to the effect that in a lot of conditions, ocean-going ships could make no progress whatsoever into the wind. That meant they were compelled to sail in certain directions. The periaguas could paddle straight into the wind super fast. They could go over reefs and things that the other vessels couldn't. So
they could go over reefs?
Throughout the Bahamas and the Caribbean, you'd have coral reefs that are, 4 or 5 feet under the water, 3 feet under the water.
And this could break through them?
They could go right. They're canoes. They draw very little water whatsoever. Whereas, say, a Royal Navy frigate will draw 10, 12 feet. So they're good for pursuing and capturing a vessel in certain conditions, but then to escape, you can sail, you can take your periaguas and float right over all these barriers that your pursuer, Royal Navy warship, for instance, can't follow you and has to go the long way around. By the time they do it, you've disappeared. So they were very agile vessels, so a lot of pirates would start with those. But your question as to how they recruit, sometimes, your initial group would be, hey, this is a drag, let's go out and, make money, a better way. We're all starving here. An important thing to understand about why there was this Golden Age pirate outbreak is it followed the conclusion of a colonial war, the War of the Spanish Succession, it's called.
Yes. Can you please explain this? This was pretty long.
And this is important answering the question you had. So the War of Spanish Succession ends in 1714. And as I said, the Golden Age of piracy kind of starts in 1715.
Guys, if you're still watching this video and you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, please take 2 seconds and go hit it right now. Thank you.
That's not a coincidence. There was this big colonial war, England versus France and Spain and so on, like many of these colonial wars. But when that war ended, the Royal Navy decided they didn't need as many vessels, and they dumped 2/3 of the Royal Navy's entire complement of sailors on the docks of wherever they were throughout the world. Good luck. We don't need you anymore, right? And merchant shipping, continued, but merchant shipping suddenly is like, oh, there's all these unemployed sailors everywhere starving. We're going to lower our wages by half, right? Or cheat you another way. So suddenly the whole supply and demand, the labor market was crap for labor at the time. And you had all these, people with a certain set of skills, right? They're naval sailors or former privateers, and we can get into who they were as well, who know how to handle ships, know how to handle ships in combat, have been fighting, in the English case, the Spanish throughout the War of Spanish Succession, and raiding their plantations and attacking their ships. And suddenly they're starving on, the docks of Port Royal, Jamaica, or wherever they are. And a lot of them were like, well, this is a drag. Let's get back to being privateers. We don't have permission anymore, but let's go do it.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.